Welcome, and thanks to those of you who've travelled a long way. Before we start, could you please make sure that your phones are on silent or switched off? Thank you. We're delighted as Northwest Humanists to be collaborating today with End of Life Ireland. Thank you, Janie. Northwest Humanists meet monthly, normally in the Radisson, but when we have special events like this one, we can move to different places. So you're all very welcome wherever you've come from. It's an important issue, and we're going to hear some very special speakers today, which I look forward to. But on a personal note, I just want to tell you about my own experience of end of life. My partner, Brian, was diagnosed just over a year ago with a brain tumour, and he immediately set about arranging his funeral. He did talk about the possibility of going off to a bog and topping himself, because his worst fear was that he would become not himself. Fortunately, I even rang Tom looking for advice and information. As it happened, we didn't need it because he had a very dignified death. He was looked after by Northwest Hospice, and so we got through it. But hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of people must be having similar thoughts. They get a serious diagnosis and they don't know what to do. So End of Life Ireland is campaigning conscientiously to get the law changed so that we can have assisted dying in this country. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Janie as MC and look forward to the events of this afternoon. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming and to place in context, if you like, who I am, who End of Life Ireland is, and the reason behind today's meeting, as well as supporting assisted dying. So say there are quite a few reasons, and it's a very apt time of year. Every year, on the 2nd of November, World Right to Die Day happens. So advocates all over the world, many of whom have advocated for assisted dying, for legislation they didn't live to see, are honoured in this way. So in communities throughout the world, gatherings large and small like this happen. And it's been in the back of my mind to do such a gathering. And events overtook themselves, which is why today in November we're having this event. Without legislation, what happens is people, as Gill has outlined so clearly, are considering what once you receive a terminal or an incurable diagnosis, or you have a condition that renders you unable to engage in life in a way which is acceptable to you. Look for other ways in which they can end their lives. And quite often, they take drastic steps. Some people do travel abroad for an assisted death. Others take matters into their own hands. And that can be very sad. It can go terribly wrong. Well, it's always sad, of course, but sad that they had to consider that. Sad that they, in many instances, had to die alone. When, with compassionate legislation, we know assisted dying can be provided in a way that is safe, that is legal, that is kind and supported. So as End of Life Ireland, we're a group of volunteers. We've we've all had different experiences that have led us to this place of believing and not giving up in pursuing legislation, believing that it will happen. As I say, it's a bit of a strange week. The person responsible for all of our graphics, our brand identity, died on the 1st of November. Mai was 50, left teenage children, and spent the last year she volunteered at the conference as well, on the ground, as well as producing all of the tremendous material that we have. She went into hospital, and since September, after the conference, it went downhill very quickly. Pancreatic cancer is brutal. Listening to her husband and her teenage children at the funeral was heartbreaking. And it was when her husband said, watching Mai die over that prolonged period of time was heartbreaking for them. And it's something that stays in a family's mind, stronger than anything else. So what also happens, and Mai also said, just for background information, she said she couldn't leave Ireland, no matter how much she believed in this, to leave her family, and for her husband to risk imprisonment of up to 14 years, which would be the punishment. So we know a kind of death is possible, and that's what we will always keep here we go, good bit of editing there, keep campaigning for that kind of legislation. But the possibility of legislation without a referendum wouldn't have been possible without Mari Fleming, with the help of her life partner Tom Curran, who is here, taking her case to the Supreme Court in 2013. For those of you who aren't familiar with her story, Mari had MS, and Tom, I know, will talk about that later. But because that case went to the Supreme Court, and sadly Mari died before the ruling of the court was made public, what that legislation or the judgment meant was that we don't have to have a referendum in Ireland. So it is up to our politicians. We've had committee, there was a 9-month all-party committee. They looked at how legislation could be introduced and how it might operate in Ireland. So they heard testimonies from advocates and organisations from all over the world. Recommendations were produced, and they've sat there. So now, through our endeavours, and hopefully yours as well, what we can do is move towards getting it back on the government agenda again, because otherwise people will still continue to travel, and especially if, when we do get legislation, it's not wide enough, because it can be safeguarded, people will still be excluded. So I think together, in the sharing of stories, sharing of experiences, we can move to change that. We have amazing people here today who will be very open about their experiences. Tom will start, followed by Justin, Helen Rochford-Brennan, who is known to some of you here and known to many throughout the world, and Carmel Gagan, who founded Dementia Ireland. In between, we're going to have music as well. And then at the end of the afternoon, at the end of our gathering here, we're going to have a candlelight vigil along the river into Queen Maeve Square.